Hey guys, what's up?
Sorry for the atrocious framing of this video.
This is going to be a little bit of a more scattered video, I would say. I have been wanting to talk about this for a few weeks now, but I didn't really have an angle. I wasn't really sure how to crystallize my thoughts into one video, but I recently saw a video on the short form video app by one of my mutuals, Michael Jamal, and it really helped me kind of find the way I wanted to approach this topic. If you are in the BL fan space, you may already know, but the Chinese Omegaverse BL ABO Desire, also known as Desire the Series, has been dropped by about half of its streaming partners. This was announced on the production company's Twitter account, DurianCulture, a few days ago, as of me filming this, that about, like I said, roughly half of their streaming partners are dropping the show. This includes iQIYI, Tencent slash WeTV, and I believe they've had ongoing issues with YouTube. I can't speak to that exactly, but Yoku, however you pronounce that, also dropped them, and I think one other one as well. Now, don't be scared. The show is still available to watch. It is on Gaga Ulala and some other distributing platforms. Gaga's the only one I'm really familiar with. Oh, and Viki, I think as well, Viki. If you are a longtime fan of Chinese BL, it is a long-standing truth, universally acknowledged, that at any time the story you're obsessed with may be taken down from the internet forever and the author potentially thrown into prison. Like I said, this conversation is coming up again now because ABO Desire slash Desire the Series has been removed from about half of its streaming platforms. But this also was a conversation a few weeks ago when Revenged Love had a delayed posting schedule. And at the time, it was because of subtitles. There's no reason now to believe that's not true. The show has been resumed as normal. But pointedly, Revenged Love is not airing on any Chinese owned streaming platforms. These platforms include Youku, iQIYI, Tencent, WeTV. Gaga is not Chinese owned. And this will be familiar to fans of the 2016 Chinese BL Addicted the series, which was one of the first major well known victims of the sweeping censorship laws in China surrounding LGBT content.
Asterisk that most BL fans were aware of at the time.
But there's a few different subjects I kind of want to touch on in this video. I want to talk about ABO Desire getting dropped. I want to talk about censorship in China in general, but then more broadly, the world in general is succumbing to a lot more censorship, and this is what that is going to lead to. So I want to somehow try and connect all of those subjects together in this video through the angle of ABO Desire, and I hope you will join me on that journey and just stick with me. I will try to be as coherent as possible. So, first, I want to start with the history of homosexuality in China. And I'm not Chinese, I do not live in China. So, this research was done online. If I cite any articles or anything, it's all going to be in the description box below. So, you can feel free to peruse my sources at your leisure. But there is a long and documented history of homosexuality in China. It's gone back and forth between being illegal, being legal, and then just kind of some public ambivalence in between. Currently, in China, there is no ban on same sex activity, but same sex couples can't get married or adopt children. There is a system that's actually popular in a lot of Asian countries where same sex marriage isn't legal, where one member of the couple will adopt the other because adult adoption is a lot more common in Asia and it offers a lot of the same benefits as marriage, but obviously it's very much not the same thing. In slightly more recent history, homosexuality was outlawed during the Qing dynasty in 1740. In 1912, the Xinhai Revolution toppled the Qing dynasty and its explicit prohibition of homosexuality was abolished. Heteronormativity and intolerance of LGBT people became more and more mainstream through the westernization efforts of the early Republic of China. Homosexuality was largely invisible during the Mao era, but during the Cultural Revolution, which was 1966 to 1976, gay men were regarded as disgraceful and undesirable and heavily persecuted. Prior to the 1997 revision to China's crime laws, homosexual acts could be punished under the crime of hooliganism. And currently, from what my research suggested, homosexuality has been declassified as a mental disorder by the Chinese Society of Psychiatry, but it still is considered that in certain regulations, like for the National Health and Family Planning Commission, as well as some medical textbooks that are still being used in certain medical schools in China. In 2021, a court in Jiangsu upheld a ruling that a description of homosexuality as a mental disorder in a 2013 edition of a university textbook was a result of perceptual differences rather than factual error. According to the South China Morning Post, the textbook is used by a number of Chinese universities. Bringing it even more into the modern age, in July 2021, a number of LGBT accounts run by university students on WeChat were deleted, with messages saying that the accounts had violated regulations on the management of accounts offering public information service on the Chinese internet. That's a lot of words. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but moving on. A 2016 UNDP survey indicated that less than 5% of LGBT people are fully out at school, work, or in their religious community, while about 15% are out to their families. LGBT rights activists have been subjugated to increased scrutiny, and authors of BL works have been arrested and criminally prosecuted. One of the most infamous instances of a BL being banned is, like I said earlier, when the Chinese BL series Addicted was taken down from Chinese streaming platforms in February 2016 due to censorship. The Chinese government, through organizations like the State Administration of Press, Publication, Radio, Film, and Television, frequently censors content deemed inappropriate or harmful to public morality. In this case, the series was banned due to gay and explicit content. It was removed from all streaming platforms. It was airing on Tencent, which is WeTV, and iQIYI, with only a few episodes left before the show was completed. While the series was banned in China, the final 3 episodes were released internationally on YouTube. However, the ban had a lasting impact on the actors and the show's future, with the planned second season being shelved. The actors were also unofficially banned from appearing together in public events or on television in China. If you're a fan of The Untamed, I don't know how official or unofficial this is, but basically, since promotions for The Untamed finished, the main 2 actors have literally not been seen looking at each other in public. They've been at the same events, like award shows, but they have not interacted a single time since promotions for the show ended. Because if you're familiar with fan fiction and fandom history, fan fiction for their show is one of the reasons AO3 got banned in China. The Chinese government's stance is that BL content promotes deformed taste, a malevolent culture, and is considered wrong and erotic and violent. This is part of a wider campaign to suppress LGBTQ expression and promote traditional family values. So, more in the current day, like I said, we're currently dealing with this with ABO Desire being dropped by all of its Chinese owned streaming platforms. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised it was aired in the first place, but that just leads me to believe that a lot of this censorship is more retroactive than I maybe initially thought. I don't know much about how the process works, and I'll be the first one to admit that. Again, I am not Chinese. I do not live in China. I only know what I can perceive through the lens of media that I consume in English. But it does seem to me to be, I don't know why I thought that like shows had to be approved before they even aired in the first place, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Also, that seems like it'd be really hard because there's so many shows and movies all airing at the same time. And it does make more sense that it would be retroactive, which is what appears to have happened with ABO Desire and also Addicted the series back in 2016. The first seed planted in my mind that made me want to make this video was several weeks ago when the news dropped that Chinese authorities in Lanzhou had arrested dozens of BL authors, all women in their 20s and 30s. They will not confirm how many were detained and received charges. The women published their work on Haitang Literature City, which is a paid web novel hosting website. And this is not the first time something like this has happened, but it's one of the first times that the authors weren't particularly wealthy or famous from their works. Most of them had only made a few $1,000s at most off of the stories that they had published. The detentions since March have triggered debate on social media about the limits of free speech and the apparent sexist nature of the crackdown, while stirring sympathy for the authors, many of whom hail from low income backgrounds. This is a quote from one of their lawyers. In a country that emphasizes socialist morality, people's concept of sex is fueled by the prevailing culture. So, of course, it is linked to freedom of speech. If these things can't be written now, wasn't Dream of the Red Chamber also obscene at the time? They asked, referring to a famous 18th century Chinese novel. In 2021, China's state media regulator called for the removal of content depicting abnormal sexual relationships, a year after the official People's Daily condemned boys' love novels as poison that could mislead young people on gender. More than a dozen Chinese lawyers have publicly offered pro bono aid to the authors and Haitang readers summoned by the police. China cracks down periodically on content it deems immoral, ranging from LGBT themed social media accounts to vulgar live streamers and influencers who flaunt wealth. A crackdown on gay erotica last year in 2024 saw more than 50 Haitang authors detained or fined by rural police in the eastern province of Anhui. Anhui? Not sure how you say that, sorry. According to lawyers. One well known author was jailed in December for 4.5 years for earning 1.8 million won, which is about 250,000 US dollars, by publishing obscene works. A court judgment posted online by her husband showed. The user did not respond to a request for comment. Can't imagine why. This is an article from Reuters, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's what I'm summarizing here. But the latest group of detained authors made just a few thousand yen from their works, said an activist familiar with several cases who declined to be identified for safety reasons. In informal conversations, the defense lawyer said Lanzhou court officials have called the stories disgusting and perverted for their depiction of LGBT relationships. The Haitang hashtag on RedNote drew more than 205 million views and 1.8 million posts before it was censored in June. Men who write pornographic fiction enter the China Writers Association, whereas women who do the same go to jail, runs a popular RedNote meme. Many users said some perpetrators of the R word, it's hard to say these words without getting censored, and DV received lighter sentences than writers of erotica. Many articles seem to share the sentiment that Chinese authorities believe the popularity of BL and effeminate men are at least partially responsible for China's falling birth rate. On September 2nd, 2021, NPR reported that China had banned effeminate men on TV and told broadcasters Thursday to promote revolutionary culture, broadening a campaign to tighten control over business and society and enforce official morality. I was a K-pop fan when this happened. I was already a K-pop fan by then. And I vividly remember the switch up that Chinese idols were having on Instagram when this ban on effeminate men went into effect. From the way they were styled, types of photo shoots that they did, even to the point that a lot of them were trying to grow facial hair to limited points of success. There was and still is a large influence of K-pop idol aesthetics in other Asian countries, which China wanted to push back against, which is one of the reasons that they've also banned other countries like idols and stuff from promoting in China for a while. I'm not sure if that ban is still in place, but it was for a while. A very interesting blog post from 2022 on the SOAS University of London China Institute dives deeper into this topic. The entire post is very intriguing, but they summarize their viewpoint by saying, while not allowing women to write and read BL series may seem to be a trivial matter, the ongoing crackdown of the genre reflects a disconnection between the state's perceived cause of low birth rate and the realities of widening gender inequality. So that's the end of a lot of my articles on the subject, but the end of my notes are such a scramble. I just have so many thoughts about this. Like, it's so interesting to me that WeTV won't continue to air ABO Desire. but they have partnered with other countries to air BLs. Like Knock Out the Series is a Thai BL that aired on WeTV. So clearly they don't mind making money off of this. Clearly they don't mind hosting this content. They just don't want to host it if it's from China. Or is it because it was the Omegaverse aspect of everything? Is that what they were having a problem with? Because, I mean, listen, I understand the Omegaverse is not for everybody. It's a lot for somebody who's not familiar with it to be inducted into that world. But was that the problem? Was it the fact that it was a Chinese BL airing on a Chinese owned platform? I'm just really curious about that and kind of how that all came to be. I really think this all plays a part in an even bigger discussion about censorship. This is a topic I'm super passionate about, so I will try not to ramble on for ages because I know not everybody cares about it as much as I do. But it's becoming even more important to countries outside of China because we're seeing huge crackdowns on censorship in, or not crackdowns on censorship, we're seeing crackdowns via censorship on media in countries like Australia and the UK, who've both recently passed what they are calling laws that are protecting children online. But by protecting children online, they mean that they're going to be censoring online content for anybody on the internet who wants to find it. So if a young woman who gets her first menstrual cycle is trying to Google information about it in the UK, no information will come up because it's deemed sensitive or not suitable for children. And sure, I don't really know if a 4 or 5 year old should be Googling that kind of information. But if a young woman is experiencing her first menstrual cycle, she deserves to have access to that information. And that's just one very niche example. But these are the kinds of things that are going to happen if these censorship laws continue to be allowed to pass. My biggest issue with censorship laws like this is, who do you trust enough to decide for everybody what is and is not appropriate or damaging? That is the kind of power that no one person or one entity can have. Because as soon as one person or one entity has that power, they are weak and subject to political agendas that will influence the kind of content they deem inappropriate. And we're seeing it clear as day in China. It's anything LGBT is inappropriate, whether it's just two women holding hands on the street and looking cuddly, or something more hardcore like ABO desire. And I'm not saying, again, that we should have tiny children watching ABO desire, but I am saying that it's not the internet's job to be your child's parent. It's your job as a parent to be your child's parent. It's also so interesting to me that here in the States, we're having this conversation about like parents' rights, and we don't want the government to infringe on our parents' rights. But you're asking the government to control the entire internet because you don't feel like keeping an eye on your child when they're on the internet. So you do want the government to parent your child, but only when it's convenient for you personally. I get really frustrated about this topic. I'm sorry, but this is coming even more important as we have recently seen Visa and MasterCard forcing inappropriate content off of platforms like Steam and itch.io, which are video game company streaming websites. I'm not really into video games, but it all comes back to the story, I promise. So basically, Visa and MasterCard were pressuring these video game platforms to say, like, we will no longer service you if you allow these kinds of games on your website. And I'm not saying that there were games on there that I would not have thought were completely out of line and inappropriate, but it became a huge swath of any games that fit these parameters were getting slashed. So, oh, in Stardew Valley, because you can romance a man or a woman, is Stardew Valley next on the chopping block to get axed just because Visa and MasterCard say so? Who says Visa and MasterCard have any kind of moral authority to even make that decision? And you may be wondering, Visa and MasterCard, why do you care so much? And I was also curious about that. And I recently saw a video on the short form clock app that kind of blew my mind. Recently, the current president of the United States, I don't know if it was an executive order or what, it's hard to keep up these days, but basically said, hey, all of the government payment processes need to move to digital. We're not going to do, like, I assume, checks anymore. And Visa and MasterCard last month in June, I believe June of 2025, both met with the current administration to pitch their services to be the payment platform that the US government is going to use, potentially one of the two, to make this new payment process a reality. And then, barely even a month later, they're cracking down on any kind of content they deem inappropriate on video game channels. And I hear people say, it's not that deep, it's not that deep. It really is that deep. It really, really is that deep. Any form of censorship that is allowed to occur is inappropriate, is unacceptable, in my opinion, because, like I said earlier, who gets to be the arbiter of what is and isn't appropriate? Who gets to be the arbiter of what is and isn't something that a grown adult with their own money should or should not have access to? Obviously, excluding the realm of, like, truly criminal things and activities. But like I said earlier, the moral of the story is, when you let one person or one entity become the judge and jury on what is and isn't morally acceptable, sooner or later, that is going to come home to you. One way or another, it will infiltrate your video games, your TV shows, your music, your books, your fashion, your anything that is considered art that you consume. Censorship will come home to roost. So, yeah, all of this really started with ABO Desire getting dropped by half of its streaming partners, but it is so much bigger than that. Censorship is so much bigger than that, and it is becoming more and more prevalent and more of a threat to the entire world. I wish I had some kind of a call to action here. I don't know. If you live in America, please contact your representatives, no matter what party they're a part of. If they support policies that you support, make sure you let them know that you stand behind them. If they don't, make sure that they know that you're a constituent and you are disagreeing with their platform and why. I contact my representatives all the time, so it's really not scary once you do it for the first time. And if you are not living in the US, which I know many of my followers are not, shout out to Thailand, where most of my viewers are from. I know you're all really going through a difficult time right now, and I am thinking of all of you every single day. I know that sounds not true and really trite, but I promise it is true. I really am thinking of all of you, and I hope all of you stay safe. But if you are not from the US, keep an eye out on your own governments. What kind of laws are they passing? What kinds of things are the politicians saying on these topics? And if possible, if it's safe for you and in your life, make your voice heard. Make sure that people in your life and your government officials know how you feel about this subject. I wish I had more to say. Unfortunately, this is kind of where my rant that fits neatly into a YouTube video has to end. Please do all the YouTube things if you are so inclined. Like, subscribe, share with a friend, follow me on my other social medias. I am really close to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm really hoping to get there soon. Join my channel memberships if you are so inclined. Huge shout out to my channel members. Your support means so incredibly much to me, and I am so thankful that you have chosen to be a channel member and support me. That is all for today. Contact your local representatives, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.